Namaste, my friends. I'm so excited for today. We have our weekly live flow state session, and we're going to be talking about preparing for Bali. We're getting ready to go on this amazing, exciting journey. This is actually my 12th year bringing groups to Bali. But for the people who have never been before, it's always exciting for it to be your first time. And also anybody who's still considering joining us, I want to let people know that there still is time. In fact, in the past, I've actually had people sign up the 3 days before we started. I remember one year, one of the managers, she was like the head of all the Lululemons of the West Coast of the US and Canada. And she was getting ready for her wedding, actually. And so she ended up signing up to join us in Bali at the last minute. And 3 days before we were starting, she signed up and she flew over there. So there's always a time that you can still join us if you're considering, if you know anybody who's considering, if they're kind of really looking for an opportunity, something that can transform your life and really get 2023 started in the best possible way. I was really thinking about all of the work that we've done, together, especially in the online community. And this live experience is just the amplification of all of that. And it just takes it all to the next level. But also we do things that we don't do online in these live immersions. And so I'm excited about that. There are, for example, healing ceremonies. We're going to be doing a holotropic breath ceremony, which if some of you have never heard of that, it's literally one of the most life-changing experiences. In 1 hour, you can literally clear and heal trauma from your childhood, from your past life in just 1 hour. And I've even had people tell me that they were able to see and experience a download and a vision of their true life purpose, the alignment of that, and that experience changed the trajectory of their life. One of my goddesses that was with us one of the years, she was able to see, 'cause she had already been teaching yoga for like 12 years, and she just had this vision that her passion was really in the breath. Actually, funny enough that it was during the breathwork ceremony, but basically that she was shown that she wanted to really focus on that. And it was so beautiful because after that, she ended up really going much more into that. And she started, I was coaching her with her business. So we launched her YouTube channel together, and we did a couple of videos, and one of her videos went viral. It reached over 1 million people. She started teaching meditation and breath work on one of the largest apps in the world for that, called I'm trying to think what it's called. It's called Insight Timer. And it's also an opportunity for everyone in our community. If you guys would like to, once you've graduated and you've already gotten your certification, there are a number of resources that we'll be sharing with you in the Master Business Academy and the different opportunities that we have in place to help you to shape your next steps and launch your career. But one of the things that I helped her with was to get her teaching on larger platforms so she could attract clients really quickly. So we got her on one of the largest meditation apps in the world, and she quickly became popular on there. And just because she has such beautiful energy, and she really had pure intentions, and she's very skilled in her teaching and in her approach of how to share these practices. She got really popular on there. And so it just goes to show that you never know, but maybe the download of your true focus and what you want to really cultivate for your life can come to you in a flash like that. Another thing that's really exciting is in this 10 days together in Bali, for those who can't be with us live, we are offering an online streaming retreat option. So if you have any friends, or if you yourself or anybody wants to be there, but perhaps you can't travel in January for whatever reason to be with us in Bali, we have an option where people can actually join us in Bali, but from the comfort of their home, in the online streaming retreat option. And this is really exciting because not only will it feel like you're on vacation, you'll get the same experience. You can still get the hours towards your certification. You can get 100 hours for that 10-day streaming option, or they could do the 300 hours certification with our online program. And it's really, I would say, almost as good. I don't think there's really anything that can compare to being there live, but this is like the next best option for people who can't be with us. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there for everybody who's been like messaging me being like, oh, I wish I could be there, maybe next time. This is really the other option. And some of our graduates from the past actually had requested that. They were like, oh, I can't travel in January, I have 3 kids or whatever reason. One of our graduates in the past, she has a wellness center in Seattle, and she also has 3 kids, and she has like a bunch of stuff going on. So she said, she asked me if we were going to do the streaming option. And so we are. And so people can do this from home. Also, if you're in our community and you refer your friends, you earn 10 to 20% commission for those referrals. So these are also unique and beautiful opportunities that we've created to help you to create more prosperity right away in the new year by either getting your friends in on something that's beautiful and life-changing, or for yourself or for your community. So this is the way that Flow State Institute has really been organized and set up. It's like, not only we want to train you with these powerful techniques to heal yourself, to heal others, but to help you formulate the vision for how you're going to share this with the world, whether it's one-on-one in clients, leading groups, retreats, workshops. And I was actually talking to another goddess this past week who is a nurse, and she wants to serve other nurses. And I was like, this is perfect for somebody who, for example, is a nurse, to be able to package these practices, which are backed by science research, and offer them to the community that she comes from, which is nurses and medical professionals. But the really amazing thing is somebody like that can qualify to perhaps become eligible to provide continuing education to nurses. So then that allows you, just like for that specific example, to be able to charge more and have a very specific targeted audience for your teaching. So this is the same at my sister's here, Joe PL, she's a nurse too. And I want to connect them, and also her friend Stacy. And let me see, Stacy's here too. So I was thinking about this in terms of, I'm always thinking about ideas on how you guys can activate your abundance codes and like do this as an offering, as a business, as a career choice and direction, but to do it in the way that's perhaps most aligned with what you've been building towards all this time. Like if you've been a nurse, like my sister, she's been a nurse like 25 years. When you put 25 years of your life into anything, I always like to think, like, instead of just like throwing it all away, that was preparation. And now she's literally prepared to serve those people. And who knows them better than you, right? The nurses, Joe and Stacy, for example, who are still nurses, or like that.
Hey, that's me. You're going to laugh. I'm starting to.
Where's your video? You want to put your video?
Oh, no, because I'm not ready. It's early here.
Okay. All right, keep it off. What did you say?
Well, I had another idea, ironically, to go in to visit Auntie Robin and Uncle Gene, who had so many joint replacements. They'd both had both of their knees and both of their hips done, and one shoulder. And they both decided 5 was their limit, and they weren't going to have the other shoulder. But anyway, to watch them walk, I'm constantly assessing people's walk. This is kind of like my new unconscious skill. And I was like, couldn't figure out their walk at all. I was like, oh, that must be like the 5 joint replacement walks. Like I can't. So eventually it started snowing and blizzarding. And then Uncle Gene proceeded to try to teach me how to do what he considered, or he called, the cutting walk. And I was like, oh, you're doing that on purpose. This is the snow. This is like, I live in the snow walk. That has developed, over time. Like now they do it even when it's not snowing.
Well, I grew up with them. And one of the things that was really sad to me, and this is something like, you're right, like you can serve these people in a way, like if you want to, but like one of the reasons, of course, that they had to get all those joint replacements was because they were obese. So like Jean was 200 pounds overweight and Aunt Robin was at least 150. So they were like probably two of the most obese people that I've ever personally known. And I saw kind of why. I mean, I remember watching TV. I lived with them and they thought I was insane because I was like the vegetarian and they're like, you're going to starve to death. And I'm over here like, I'm happy with my tofu. You know, I was like, but the point was Jean would take like a 3 to 5 pound bag of peanut M&Ms. And while he was watching TV, he would just eat basically almost the whole bag. And if you think about how many calories and especially the sugar that's in that, it was literally like at least 25,000 calories in one sitting. And what happens is,
However, no, let me stop you because
oh, go
I
ahead.
have a lot of very obese friends who are also limber and who have not needed a single joint replacement. They needed yoga, is what I'm going for.
It's true. Well, I'm saying so this was like there was a combination of things that were like affecting their health.
Like Tanya, oh my God, you saw her. She's just as big as Robin, you know, easily got to be Jean's size and has gained and lost over her lifetime. And she now has a yoga space in her bedroom.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. So
and
she's
no joint
feeling good.
replacements.
I totally agree with that.
60.
It's so amazing to see that although the weight will be, you know, not healthy for you, you know, in different capacities, but if you do keep your joints lubricated with movement and stretching the muscles around them so that it does make such a tremendous impact, even if you do have the excess weight. So that's such a good point, Joe.
Thank you. All right. And so we'll come back to the joint replacement, the bionic yoga idea later.
Well, you know, this is like a great point. And thank you for coming on and sharing that, because I just want to mention for everybody who's listening that this is a perfect example of how when you start to look at the world, and especially people in your family, especially around the holidays, and you start to see like, wow, this person needs yoga, this person. And then you start to realize everybody can benefit from this practice. So it doesn't matter if they're like overweight, obese, or even just like in good shape and athletic, or like children. And, you know, everybody in between can benefit from this. So it really comes down to, who do you feel called to serve? Where do you feel a joy in your heart when you think about, yeah, I can help them? You know, that energy that you got, that kind of enthusiasm that sparked in you, Joe, is so beautiful, because that's really the important thing, is that you're like, wow, I can help this. And then when you see the contrast with your friend Tanya, who's doing yoga and doesn't have to get any replacements in her joints, she's got the same weight, perhaps, but not the joint problem, and you can see how big of an impact the yoga practice can make in everybody's life. So thank you for sharing that. So cool. Yeah, I think it's important. And you guys, if anybody here has anything you want to share, please feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand and you can share. But I think it's also really exciting as you start to formulate like your vision for what you want to do and who you want to serve, is there's a number of kinds of different audiences that you can really focus on. And that's what I did when I started, actually. One second, Floor, I'm going to just say this and then you can come on. Was that when I started, I was excited about a number of audiences. So I was like, okay, I love kids and I wanted to work with adults and parents and families and all these different types of audiences. So what I did was I started really wide and I said, I'm going to try all of it. And then it got narrow and narrow as time went on. The sort of like the universe started to reveal to me, okay, all of them are good, but this is the path of greatest joy. This is the path of greatest abundance. And then I started to really be more specifically focused on those paths, because at the end of the day, you can't always serve everyone all the time. And the more specific you get, whether it's from the beginning or over time, you're going to see yourself actually having better success. And I'm going to be teaching, I have a new program that I'm going to be offering to everybody in the new year that can potentially help you to really get honed in on your path of greatest joy and abundance. And one thing that's super exciting about the time that we live in is that, like I was saying about the nurse thing for Joe, and if they wanted to, Joe and Stacy and anybody who's a nurse or a medical professional, if they wanted to hone in on those specific people, if they were like, okay, we're going to serve our people, our nurses, our medical professionals, and they got really specific about that. And then, for example, let's say I was coaching them and I was showing them how, you know, they're going to apply for the CEU at designation. They're going to set up the program specifically for those people. They could easily create 6- and 7-figure businesses just with that one niche. with that one demographic and be very fulfilled by doing just like maybe a couple retreats a year with some clients and a couple of seminars, maybe once a month or something. So there's like formulas of how you're going to create your business or set up the structure of how you offer your services in ways that are the path of greatest joy, the path of greatest abundance, the path of greatest leverage of your time and energy, which to me is also the path of joy and abundance. Because let's say you want to help people, you want to make a great career and a great income, but you don't want to be sort of like slave to this business, right? Like you're like, I work 29 hours a day and 365 days a year. That's really what most people don't want. And so what I want to do is help you as much as possible, especially in these live sessions, is when I can offer some real guidance in terms of Q&A if you have any questions and stuff. But basically like getting clear on that for the new year. So you have your game plan, your action plan, and what I also like to call your blueprint. We also have a special thing that we're offering. It's called a prosperity coaching call, that if anybody wants to schedule that with our team, we have a couple people that join the team that are going to be able to help you in terms of just getting clearer on that, like what it is that you want to do, what do you want to serve, how we can help you get there. And that's something that we're offering to our community, but whether it's the people already in the program, but also people that aren't even yet enrolled in one of our programs. But how can we create a blueprint where you're going to be like, okay, this is my action plan. This is how I'm going to execute that action plan. This is the end result that I want, which is I want to work 20 hours a week. I want to make this much money. I'm going to charge this much. These are the people I'm going to serve. And so then I'm going to take a four weeks off in the summer. You can set yourself up. And that's what I love about the idea of like, you are your own boss, is that when you really do get into this flow of your career, in that sense where you're creating your own schedule, you're creating the vision for your life. Right now it's just the vision, right? It's like we're going to start, actually this week a friend of mine are going to do dream boards, and that's something that we can share with you as well if you'd like to join in on that, which is like literally creating the vision for your life, and even to the point where you're going to make a dream board where you have the visuals of that. It's like you want to go to the Maldives this year, put that on the dream board. How many times, and you can leave a comment for anybody who's had this, if you've ever created a dream board and then you actually manifested those things on the dream board. That happens to me every year. I've been doing this since I was in high school. When I look at my dream board at the end of the year, I literally manifested almost every single thing on there. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes if you're not specific enough, you manifested it, but it wasn't this specific enough. Like, for example, I was like, I want to manifest my husband, but then like on the dream board, actually I only had a picture of like this like lady and her husband and these kids, and I realized I manifested a lot of friends that have like families that have kids, and I was like, oh, maybe the dream board, I wasn't specific enough. It wasn't like me with my husband, it was like some people that are married with some kids, and I manifested a lot of those, and I realized, okay, you got to be very specific. But we can do that together. If you guys are interested, please feel free to leave a comment, let me know. And I just wanted to empower you with the excitement of like this last couple weeks of the year, in knowing that we are in preparation mode. And also anybody coming to Bali with us or doing the online training retreat, that we're going to be focusing on that. And that's one of the greatest takeaways actually of my retreats, is that literally we spend an hour every morning visualizing your dream life. And so by the end of our training retreats, so many people that I've had come to these have been like, I manifested literally like my dream while I was at the retreat. That happened to me one year. I was like dreaming of like going to the Maldives, as I had always seen that online. I had always seen pictures of the Maldives. I was like, I want to go to the Maldives, but not just go to the Maldives. I want to go there. I want to film a 30-day yoga challenge video series in the Maldives. And I was like, how am I going to make that happen? And I was like, every morning I was like journaling, I was meditating, I was visualizing. And then as I was doing that, I was getting downloads and guidance of like who to contact, how to make it happen. Within like less than a week, I already had the right person. He like had contacts in the Maldives. He got us sponsored at a resort. We had like a 7-day, $20,000 like sponsorship to go there and film, literally lined up within the first 10 days of my training that time. And I was like, this stuff works. So I want you to get excited about that, because we're going to be doing that together in Bali, and for those who join us in the online option. Okay, so I want to give Floor an option because or a moment she wants to come on and say something.
Yes,
Hi.
I wanted to share something about integrating yoga into the professional scene where I worked in, because I'm a physiotherapist and I teach the Otago fall prevention training. And so I was teaching a class at Tuesday, and there I actually included some yoga things and also the yoga blocks. And many physiotherapists, they didn't know the blocks, so it was for them like something new, that you can bring the floor up to the knees or the hands from the participants. And also there, it's good to integrate some yoga things into a profession, which is actually already a physical profession with exercises and stuff. Yeah, that's what physiotherapists also do in Holland. We treat by hand, but also by giving exercises. And the Otago fall prevention is exercise a lot. But then again, were some things from yoga that I could integrate into the lessons, and it was very interesting for the participants. So I wanted to share this success with you.
Congratulations. First of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that. And secondly, I have two things I want to say. First of all, that's such a brilliant idea. Thank you for letting us know about that. I actually, when I started out, I was working with some, not the physiotherapists, but actually some people that had been going to physiotherapists, but that weren't receiving this level of what you're talking about, which is integration of the yoga into this physiotherapy. And they were really struggling because the physiotherapy is a very like one size fits all type of approach to healing. And the yoga is more of a customized healing experience. And I always felt, and this could be your niche, is like that you should integrate both together, and that this could be a revolutionary new type of physiotherapy where actually they do have somewhat of something like, it's called yoga therapy, but it's similar, where it's like, okay, now they're taking the yogic postures, the yogic principles, the yogic understanding of the holistic wellness and healing, integrating that into some of the physiotherapy science and meshing them together for something that's truly transformational and healing. So a lot of people go to physiotherapy and they're going like twice a week for years, and they're getting very minimal results. There was a woman that I worked with. She had been going for several years and she wasn't getting the results. And it's because they would just like be like, put her on the same circuit every time for for years. And she was just like making like almost no progress. But once she got the hands-on customized approach that I had, she actually stopped the physiotherapy because she was like, this is helping more. But what you're saying, I think, is the next level, which is you work with them and you can actually help people heal faster by bringing the yogic practices into those medical fields and into those therapeutic and wellness or fitness types of fields. And especially for someone like you who has such a strong grasp of the anatomy and like your background in that, it's a perfect fit. The other thing I want to mention about Floor is because she is like a very brilliant, almost like scientific minded person. So like physiotherapy, anatomy is kind of her forte, where most people, they're like, they hate that. It's very too technical. And so one thing that I've talked to Floor about is like, I would like to see her working with our leaders and being one of our leaders, perhaps at the live training retreats and even in the online programs, where she can offer this like scientific, like anatomy coaching workshops for the teachers, for yoga teachers and or physiotherapists and different people, and even fitness professionals, because it's a niche that is very underserved. So for you and for anyone else who has like affinity and like skills in that niche, you have a huge opportunity. Just like I was talking about with Joe PL and Stacy, they have a huge opportunity with, let's say, nurses and stuff, because they're coming from that background. Now, most of the time when you're coming from something, you're like, oh yeah, let me get away from that because I've already been doing that forever. But actually you can choose to do something different, or you can kind of like build on what you've already like created a life with and serve those people more now with these new skills that you're going to be learning, or that you are learning, or that you've already learned with yoga and the Flow State Institute. And then you can literally turn around and serve those people better because you're coming from there. So you have a deeper understanding of their pain, how you can help them, where they need support, where they have some missing elements that you can fill in the gaps. And when I'm helping people in their business, I always encourage that. It's like, really look at your opportunities of where you've come from and the career and the life that and the skills that you've built up until now. And then you can ask yourself, like, how can I serve those people where I can do it on my terms, in the way that I want to, whether it's like once a month, a workshop, an online course, a retreat training, or some CEU trainings or workshops. But like, how can I serve those people who I was one of them, so I know them very well, and yet I can do it on my terms? And maybe you do that like once a week, and then you literally only work like 1 day a week, and you have probably, you can make the same amount of income or more if you do it properly, but that you're serving the people that you understand the most. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. It's so nice to integrate those parts, because in the Netherlands, as a physiotherapy, you're quite free to do whatever you want in one-on-one sessions. You have group sessions which are more structured. In one-on-one, you can do more or less what you want, but there are a lot of protocols where you have to keep track on things. But anyway, there's a difference in physical therapy which you get. And sometimes I think like, oh, you're missing so many parts. Why are you not leaning more towards that, or instructed more this way or that way? And it was nice for me to see, because it was a time ago that I gave those Otago lessons, and it was so nice to see how so many people let just drop parts that are so valuable, or instructions that you can give on a different kind of way or input. And it's so nice to see also those things come together and make it stronger. If you can just take things out of the physical therapy, out of the yoga, and you put it together, it's such a nice fusion. And I think that's for more professions. Okay.
Absolutely. It's such a great idea. And that's what I really want to encourage. And that's what I always encourage, is like thinking creatively. And that's really where you're going to set yourself apart. And that's something I also love to teach people, and not just like, obviously you're learning how to teach, and you're gaining the skills and the understanding of that aspect through the training, but also really like downloading the vision of, how do I want to offer this? And that was what I loved about what Joe PL shared, which is like, she was just with our aunt and uncle, and she got these like beautiful downloads of like, wow, I could, and just seeing like how you can help everybody, like really. And also like, see how, if they would have done this, they could have prevented the 5 joint surgeries and the amount of expense of that. And that's something really to think about. I mean, maybe they had insurance that covered it, I hope, but like, let's say you didn't have insurance and you had to do 5 joint surgeries. I guarantee that would be like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you could literally prevent hundreds of thousands of dollars of surgery just by having a consistent, very simple yoga practice. It doesn't have to be like a very advanced practice, just like literally something simple, like she was describing her friend Tanya, having a little room in her house, doing some practices, and literally at 60, she doesn't have any joint problems, even though she is obese or has a excess weight. So it's like a very interesting understanding. And as you observe your family, as you observe your friends and your community and the world at large, this is where you start to really gain insight and also inspiration on how you want to serve. And that's what I feel like as we go into the end of the year, and you getting into your meditation and you get into your journal practice, and you're really starting to create the vision for the new year and how you're going to take this skill and this gift and your new career path and take it out there to the next level. Really like, not only seeing, okay, these people can benefit, because almost everybody can benefit from this, but like, where's your path of greatest joy? Where's your path that you feel is the most natural fit? And then we'll start to formulate the vision of how you're going to serve those people. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it does.
I love you. And I'm so happy that you're here. Okay. We're back. So today's session, we have to keep it a little bit short because I'm actually in a live online workshop all weekend learning about how to be better at a public speaking, because that's something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to be doing more public speaking in the new year and serving people in different ways at live events and online events and stuff. So there's always more to grow. And that's something I always want to inspire you all to see, is that I never stop learning. I'm always in a new high level coaching where I'm getting coached, where I'm learning new skills and taking myself to the next level, not because I need to, but because like, that's the path of my joy, is growing. And one of the things that I wanted to mention was actually, I don't know if you guys are online or if you even saw my live video the other day on Instagram, but there was this famous guy, his name is Twitch, and Twitch killed himself this past week, like suicide. And it was like the whole world knew who he was because he was on the Ellen show. He was a very close friend of Ellen, and he was also a very famous like dancer and stuff. And like he had like millions and millions of fans. I only knew him because he like actually commented on some of my TikTok videos, and then he started following me. And when I saw who he was, I was like, this guy is super cool. Like he was always dancing with his wife and his kids, and he was like super joyful and smiling and such a light in the world. So it was such a tremendous tragedy and a shock for him to have killed himself, because it was like apparently completely out of the blue. Nobody expected it. No, like even his wife didn't know that he was depressed, didn't know that he was suicidal. So this brought a lot of important topics up because it's about the mental health of humanity right now, especially people that don't talk about it. Like a lot of people are suffering. They don't even ever tell anybody. They're just over there suffering alone. And for someone like that, he had what could appear to be everything. He had a wonderful, beautiful wife, 3 beautiful children, super, lots of fame, lots of money. He had all of the things you would ever think would be like a good life. And he was literally smiling every day. And like he had, and so there's different reasons what we could say. Like some people say, oh, well, when you have this depression, it's a mental health issue, which is true. But at the same time, sometimes when I thought about it and when I talked about in my live video, if you want to go watch it on Instagram, it's talking about how the soul literally wants to grow. Like you come into your physical body in this life to grow. So sometimes when you feel like you already have everything, it can get depressing, which sounds weird, but it's like, okay, well, what more is there? And then all of a sudden it's like there's no growth and there's nothing to strive for, because you could literally snap your fingers and get anything. This is also what happened with Jim Carrey. That's why Jim Carrey would go through like these episodes, but it actually led him to have a deep spiritual awakening. But Jim Carrey's fiance actually had committed suicide, which led him to be more spiritual, because he was like, wow, literally you can have everything, but that's not even the answer. Having it all isn't the answer. What is the answer? How do you have joy, right? Where is this true fulfillment of life come from if it doesn't come from having it all, right? And it literally, I feel there's a few places where that true joy of living comes from. One of them has to do with your connection to your soul. Like if you feel connected to your soul and your purpose of life, then no matter what happens, you're always kind of like inspired to live, because you're like, I have a purpose of life. So you're like every day working towards fulfillment of this purpose of life. And if you don't feel like you have a true, actual, meaningful purpose of life, you can fall into a category of depression or, these other mental health issues, because you're just like, no matter if you have everything, if you don't feel purposeful of life, like it can feel depressing. I've had clients like that. I remember this one woman, she was like, so wealthy. Like she had this huge mansion and she was only like 30 and she had 2 kids. It didn't work out with her and the dad, but anyway, she was overweight, but she basically had it all, and she could have gotten in better shape if she wasn't kind of lazy. But basically, she was super depressed and she was on depression medication. And I would come over and I would do yoga with her, but she was really not willing to change anything about her life. So she would do yoga once a week, but then like she wasn't willing to change anything else. And you could tell like she wasn't actually being present with me because she was like on her phone even when we were doing yoga together the whole time. And sometimes she would get on the phone in the middle of yoga to talk to someone from her team because she had a business, and she would start yelling at them like full of anger and rage. So she had like a lot of unreconciled like anger and rage, and she wasn't present during the yoga, which was what she was hoping to, balance her emotions with. So this is a lesson for those of you who do end up working with clients in this capacity. One of the things that I really wanted to do with her was to be more enforcing of the rules, like no phone in the class. But when someone has that level of money and power, it's kind of hard to be like, look, lady, no phone in the class, because to be able to tell someone like what to do, when they're usually the one like telling everyone else what to do, you have to be able to command that. And I was only like 25 at the time, so I didn't have that level of personal power to stand up to her. So in the end, actually, she ended up doing really well. And she got over her depression, which I'm super happy about. And there was a lot of positives when she started to find her path of joy. So she ended up starting like something that really inspired her. She's like, she had so much money. She didn't need any money. So she didn't need to do the business for money. So she was doing a business that wasn't making her happy. So she decided a new business, which was bridal wear. I don't know. She was into fashion. She was from Israel. And she started a bridal wear company, and then she got really more excited about life, and she started to, move into the direction of more joy. And so it was also for her to find the path of joy had to do with to find something to do with her time that she enjoyed versus like just managing people that she didn't even want to talk to and that she became angry at all the time. So anyway, when it comes to helping people, if they have mental health issues, if they have anger or rage, depression, what I've found is that they really have to, number one, want to change. They have to want to heal. And so that's like, we even have a new client questionnaire that, as a graduate, if you want, you can ask us for that. We'll send it to you. And this is something you can give to your new clients. They fill it out, and it basically is their commitment to change their life. And the commitment has to come from their commitment to doing what's necessary to reach those goals. You can't just be like, hey, this is going to change your life, but like literally they're on the phone in yoga. Like that's not going to help, or whatever, like there's just so many aspects to like making sure that the people that you're working with are going to get the results that you're promising or that you're delivering to them. And a big part of that is their commitment to doing the work, to doing what you suggest for them to do, or even to do their yoga practice and to be present with that instead of being, for example, on the phone the whole time, or, whatever the distraction that they tend to have. Maybe they have the TV on or whatever it is. So anyway, these are like the little pitfalls that can happen when you're starting out, when you're working with private clients. And so when you're starting out, it's super important to really kind of like command the space. And commanding the space can also be if you're teaching a group class. Like if you're teaching a group class, that's something you got to be able to lay the groundwork of the rules, right? The rules are, okay, no phones in the class, turn your phone off so we don't hear your ringer, leave your drama at the door so you don't bring that to the class. You can come up with like a really nice simple rule list and enforce that in your class, even if it's a one-on-one or a group session, or you're doing a retreat or whatever kind of seminar or something, that you lay the ground rules. And these rules are not just to be like bossy, but these rules are for their greater good, for their benefit, right? So everyone will benefit if there's not like phones ringing in the middle of the class, for example. Like the more that they can focus and be present versus distraction, the more they're going to get out of the experience. And especially, and like what we were talking about earlier, Justine said breathwork ceremonies are one of my favorite modalities. The breathwork is one of those that they have to be 100%. I mean, all of the yogic practices need presence and focus, but breathwork especially, because breathwork is a form of meditation. And as you gain more experience with this, for your own practice and also with teaching to others, you'll see the power that you can have even with 10 breaths. That's why I have that practice called 10 breaths to bliss, just to show that even in just 10 breaths, you can literally like transform your energy, and you can share that with others, and they can really feel better really rapidly with something like that. But as you combine practices, whether it's like you combine the breath work with like Kriya. So Kriya is breath work, mantra, a meditation, and a mudra and a posture. So Kriyas are the most powerful practices because it combines a number of other practices all into one, which makes you super focused, because you can't do like 5 things at once plus be on your phone, right? So it's like super focused, energy clearing, alignment practice. One thing that I love to share really quick as well is like the other day, I went to this thing because my friend had been telling me about this thing called CAP. CAP is like Kundalini activation practice or something like that. And she was telling me, CAP, it's so amazing. So I was like, let me try it. So I went to this CAP thing, and the lady, she basically just put her hand on my head. That was the whole thing. And basically, I don't know, all of a sudden, like my face felt like all this energy, but just stuck in my face, and it never left my face. And I was like, this is very uncomfortable. And I asked them, I said, this is like super uncomfortable. She's like, oh, that's normal. And I was like, oh, okay. And then basically it made me feel really, really bad. And by the time I left, I felt like worse than I came. And at the end they were like, yeah, it's very common to feel very heavy energy at the end of this. And I was like, what's the purpose? So I always want to encourage you all, like if you are going to offer any kind of modality for your clients, make sure that you tell them up front if this is something that could potentially make them feel worse at the end. Most people want to come to you because they want to feel better than when they came. Like you want to be able to be like, okay, you're going to feel better than when you came. Set them up to win, but if like that experience made me be like, I'll never go back. And that kind of thing is what you want to make sure that you avoid. Another time, for example, one of my aunts, she went to yoga one time, and the yoga teacher came up to her and did something like she was doing a twist, and then she like adjusted her improperly, and she like twisted her neck, and then she ended up with a neck injury from the yoga teacher's adjustment. She left there in pain with like a neck problem, and she never wanted to go back to yoga because she was like, well, the last time I went to yoga, I got injured by the teacher, and I ended up having to do chiropractic for months to heal this. And I just want to like mention this because I want you all to know the potential that, if you're not aware of how to actually like adjust someone, don't put your hands on them, right? Or for example, you always want to ask somebody, and this is something I teach all the time in my training, ask them if they have any injuries. That way you won't mess with them if they have an injury. For example, if they have a neck injury already from the past, if you go and like twisting their neck, this could exacerbate or even potentially make it much worse. And you have a liability for that, not only on a moral and ethical level, but also like in a legal level. And so you always want to be erring on the side of absolute caution and safety for your group, for your students, for your clients. This is super important, not only for your your mental well-being, that you don't like be like, oh my God, I injured somebody. That happened to me one time when I started as a yoga teacher. There was this really elderly woman who was one of my personal training clients at the time. And she hired me to stretch her. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll stretch you. So I remember I took her shoulder and I did this stretch to her because I love this stretch. And for somebody young and athletic, this feels really, really good. But because she was like 80 or 90, when I did that, and I was just starting out as a teacher, it actually, I guess it kind of like, dislocated her shoulder or something. I don't remember exactly what happened, but she called me the next day and she said, oh, Dashima, like whatever you did in that stretch, really, like now my shoulder hurts a lot. And I felt so bad. And it made me realize the importance of like specifically to mention this to everybody who's in our community, who's a teacher, a healer, and that's especially if you're going through our training and our certification, is that you always, always, always want to like communicate with somebody when you're teaching, but especially if you're touching them, right? So if I would have just said, how's that feel? Or is that too much? Like having that dialogue of communication so that they can give you verbal feedback specifically, like, yeah, that's enough. That's the limit. That's too much. That kind of communication, that level of listening is going to prevent potential injuries. And when we're in the live retreat setting in the teacher training in Bali, we do a workshop about Thai yoga therapy, Thai massage, and that's where you learn how to do hands-on adjustments even better. And it's also where you learn how to have this kind of communication, but you also learn what we call listening for the echo, which is learning how to and when to stop, because it's that crucial. Like this is a pivotal, important part of being a teacher and a coach and a healer of yoga, is to know the limit of the client, of the students, whether it's a group or one-on-one, and to always, always, always stop before, too much, right? And so you want to keep everybody safe. Let's see. Justine said the Kundalini module on YTT is a game changer. Oh, I'm so happy that you love that. That's so great, Justine. Did you want to come on and share anything? You're on here.
Yeah, I just have to run into the other room. My family's playing the soccer finals right now.
That's cool.
But no, the ego eradicator Kriya. Here, I'll put my camera on.
Yeah, put it on.
Hi, I don't look the best, but the ego eradicator Kriya was game changer for sure. It's literally like, oh my gosh. And also I feel like I'm a fire sign. Well, I'm double fire sign. And I have a lot of fire in my chart. And like leading up to this point in my journey, I'm like, I feel like the fire is a bad thing. It's too intense, but this kind of like made me like revisit and become friends with the fire element again in a very positive way. So I'm very grateful for that, because I feel like I've been like lighting my fire again. So I feel like that's a really good, in a positive way, because fire energy, I mean, it can be like it with unhealed things, like it can be used negatively. But as I like go through my healing journey, I feel like I've have found a really healthy relationship with the fire element. So that's what that whole module has been doing for me. So I'm really grateful and I'm really happy about it.
I love that. You know what's so cool about the fire? I have a lot of fire too. And like when you learn how to focus the energy of the fire, it's super powerful, because the people that I know that teach Kundalini Kriyas in their classes that have a lot of fire within you, you are more motivating for everyone, because a lot of times with Kundalini, but even with any kind of yoga, like people want to quit. Like they're like, they get lazy in between, but you're the one with your fire that's going to be like, keep going, you got this. Like that motivating energy is so important, because that's where they're going to have a breakthrough. And having a lot of fire as a teacher can be very powerful if you channel it into being like a motivator, and to being like that cheerleader of like, you can keep going, don't give up. That's a coach. The best coaches are the ones that get you to like keep going when you want to give up. And that's when you have a breakthrough. That's when your clients and your students will have a breakthrough, is when they wanted to give up and they keep going. And I want to mention something about Kriyas, because when I first learned Kriyas, I was just starting out. I was like around your age, and I went to this workshop, and it was like an 8-hour workshop of Kriyas. And there was this one Kriya, which I don't even know if I teach it in my training yet. We will do it in Bali. We actually have a version of it that we do, but basically it's like a standing pose, goddess pose, where it's like a wide leg squat. Basically, you're in a wide leg standing pose where your knees are bent, your arms are up like this. So this is fire mudra, and your tongue is out. And literally 30 minutes, I think it was 33 minutes in a standing wide leg squat with your arms up doing fire breath for 30 minutes. So some point it was like somewhere between 10 minutes to 20 minutes. I wanted to die. Like I was like, I am going to die. And my mind, and I'm a strong athletic person, and I was only 25 at the time, but I was like, I'm going to die. And like all of these thoughts come up in the Kriyas where you're like, I'm probably going to die. Like I need to quit. Like, why are we doing this? And you go into this whole story of like how stupid this is and like, what is the point? And, and you go through this whole drama of like anger and frustration and like everything comes up, and then something happens if you don't give up and if you stay with it. And that's what I love about the Kriyas. You move through this whole range of emotion that's like toxic emotions, that just like frustration, anger, rage, like pissed off, everything. And then you get to where you just let all that go. Because it's like there's nothing else after a while. Like you can't just stay in that. Like it just doesn't stay after a while. Literally, you can let it go. And then like that's where the breakthrough happens. That's where the magic happens. There's something that happens in your consciousness that's like, actually, I can do anything. You're like, if I can do that, 30 minutes with my tongue out and the breath of fire with the arms up and the squat and the whole thing, which was totally pointless and stupid. But like what it did was it made you go into an experience of your consciousness where you're like, if I can do that, I can do anything. It's kind of like when people do a marathon. Then they're like, well, if I can do that, then I can do this because this is easier than that. So it's like an interesting thing that you can gift to your clients through these experiences of these Kriya practices that help them to have these consciousness breakthroughs, and also to let go of a lot of the toxic negative emotional states that come up in those uncomfortable moments of life. And then they have a breakthrough, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, I can handle anything now. Like I'm literally like, no matter what, I'm going to be fine. And it also helps them to have a little bit more control over their emotional state, instead of like going just default mode into anger, rage, and frustration, is to be like, I'm gonna make it, and start to be their own cheerleader, to be their own coach. And then that's what happens. That last 10 minutes is like, I got this, I'm gonna do it. It's like when you're running a marathon and you only have like a few more miles and you're like, okay, we're almost there now, instead of like, I'm quitting, I'm sick of this. And now it becomes like, okay, we got this, empowerment, and then like self-coaching, self-motivation, and then like victory at the end, which is like, oh my God, I did it. I did something I didn't think was possible. I made it through. And that's the journey of having a breakthrough. And that's how you can take somebody through a transformation in a very short period of time.
It's so powerful. I feel like that's been like my journey with yoga too. Just every like little practice that I've like come into. At first, like I started off with yin, and then I've come here. Obviously, this is where I am right now, and at flow state. And it's just like I didn't know my body could do that. I didn't know that I was capable of doing this. And it's like training for life, literally. It's like now I can like bring these mindsets out off of the mat. It's like the on and off the mat saying that a lot of yogis say, and it's like it's so true, it's so real. And yeah, it's so cool.
Thank you so much. And that's why I feel like for you to go through all of this, and then you can turn around and you can teach people. Because if you just read it in a book and you're like, yeah, okay, now I want to teach you. No, you have to have the experience in your body, in your mind, in your life, like I just described with my 30-minute Kriya when I was 25. And then I said, okay, I want to teach this to my students, because that was like a game changer for me in my life, not because it made my butt tighter, but because it changed my consciousness and my relationship to myself and to life. And from that, I became a better teacher, to a better person. I became a better in all these ways. And then I also started to integrate those into my teaching and into my practice, and it started to change everything. So I love that you like that. Thank you for your input about it. And I hope that everybody from this has gained a little excitement and inspiration about the Kriyas in the teacher training. If you didn't start that module yet, it's exciting and it's difficult and it's really powerful and transformational all at once. So thank you, Justine.
Cool.
See you in Bali.
Yeah, I'm excited too. See you all there.
Okay, so I just want to wrap it up, because actually I have to get going. I don't have a long time today, and I want to make sure that I can serve you. So does anybody have any does anybody have any questions today before we wrap it up for the day? I'd love to answer that. And I'm going to be putting out more information for anybody who might know anybody who wants to do the live streaming version of Bali retreat training. We'll have some information and links for you all by this week. But yeah, anybody have any questions about anything right now? Love to
I
have.
kind of have a question, actually.
Okay.
It's related to this whole topic of today, of like listening to your body and like how far can you really go when the teacher says touch your toes and you're like, it hurts by the time my hands get to my knees, and preventing injury. And like some people like myself, I feel like the thing is I'm innately really, really, really good at this, whatever. I didn't even do the Kriya's module, but talking myself into keep it going, even past the pain, through the pain, it hurts, whatever, keep going. Like, kind of endurance. My grit score was through the roof.
Nice.
In all my testing. They would measure this grit, and it was always higher than my meta learning. Anyway, grit means you can push through the pain, even though it may not be serving you. Okay. So I feel like for me, I suffer from knowing where my line is, because there's my consciousness or whatever unconsciousness is saying, this is good for you to push through this limit, or I don't even think of it as a limit. It's just like
when you want to give up.
I'm knowing where I don't want to give up. Exactly. Yeah. I'm having a hard time knowing where my limits are, and pain is an issue. And I want to I want to improve from this, not get, go on the roller coaster of a little improvement and then hurt yourself where you can't do it at all. And you have to start back from square one. And this is the cycle I've been on for years now.
That's a great
Even little things like working with you. And I never blamed you, mostly because I'm very understanding of my own body. But some very simple things that I did never hurt when we did them together. Like, for example, doing the downward dog, and then you lift your leg up over your head. I remember, now I have been terrified to do this because I did it with you one time and I did 5 on each side, and it did not hurt during the pose whatsoever. I didn't feel pain at all. But then the next morning I couldn't walk. It inflamed my disc pain. And this is the kind of pain that I want to talk about. There was no sign during the exercise whatsoever that I was pushing a limit.
Yeah. That's a great point and a great question. There's two kinds of pain that I want to talk about. So there's like the pain of what we were talking about with the Kriya, where it's just like fatiguing. And then there's the pain where it's like affecting a joint or a spinal core aspect of your structure of your physical body that could have an injury. So with you, because I know you had I think bulging disc, right? That was a slip disc or a bulging disc? Was it both?
Well, I have both.
So you had that, and there was different things. The reason that you felt like maybe it came from rock climbing, it could have came from nursing, it could have came from when you were younger carrying Bokara. Like there was perhaps like all these possibilities of where it came from. But as you got into your 30s and 40s, you started to realize it was just kind of creating like continuous discomfort and then potentially sometimes inflammation and pain. So you were in actually not that uncommon, because I've known a lot of people that had this from different things, whether it's a car accident, whatever. And like one of the things that you're talking about is really common is that, sometimes you do something, you don't even know what it is that caused that to be painful. So for example, it could have been from doing this downward dog with the leg up, which might have exacerbated it, but also it could have been a hike that we did the day before or something, that was like compounding the potential of like this inflammation that later became so uncomfortable or whatever. So that's the other thing of it when you have pre-existing conditions, which is what you had at the time, was that you had a pre-existing condition. So that kind of pain is much different than what we were just talking about with Justine, which is like you just want to quit because it's just like annoyingly discomfortable, because like you're in the squat and the squat is like fatiguing your muscles, your mind is fatiguing, which is a different kind of pain than the structural pre-existing condition of an injury pain. So those are two very specifically different types of pain and discomfort to push through. I would never encourage to push through the structural and or pre-existing condition pain. Those are the ones that you always want to err on the super cautious side. I think at the time, we weren't really fully aware of how potentially severe this pre-existing condition was with you. And then later you ended up getting surgery for that. So that was, I think, how you had lived with it for so long that you were kind of like, yeah, I just kind of still do everything still. Whereas some people like don't do anything because of like a pre-existing condition. So for example, if you had a bulging disc, maybe we would say, all right, so let's do a totally different type of practice. But because you were kind of still potentially like rock climbing and or like hiking and doing like a lot of like what you would normally do, like not allowing it to stop you from living your life the way you chose and wanted to live. And that was a choice and also an interesting element that perhaps at some times
That was my grit score.
right. So you were like, I'm fine, I'm gonna just do it. And then in the end, it would lead to these moments where you couldn't get out of bed, whether it was like doing too vigorous of a yoga practice or doing a very long hike that was just, and then all of a sudden you couldn't walk. And so that was something for you at the time, maybe that it was a lesson of like not pushing and doing the grit approach, which is like, I can make it through no matter what, and being like, okay, my practice right now is just to actually do less and surrender and be in the yin and being in the healing and to say no and have a better boundary around what I felt is appropriate for my back at that moment, or even though in the moment it didn't hurt, but like, and those are the things where you just learn by doing too. Like if it didn't hurt at all when you were doing the practice, and then
That's
later
the hard thing. It's like now I become afraid to do things, thinking, well, it could hurt
later. The
later.
next thing is, if you think about it, as you evolve from there to later healing it, from what I understand of you, that it's healed and you don't have those pains anymore. Sometimes the journey of having those experiences is what leads you actually to the finality of actually the full deep healing of it. And that's what I learned too, is like sometimes, like for example, when I had scoliosis and I would have these experiences where I had upper back pain and my shoulders, I didn't realize that my upper back and neck pain was coming because the spine was out of alignment. And so if I would go work out, and I didn't realize that when I worked out in a traditional sense, I was putting 10 pounds more pressure on one side because my spine was out of balance. And that 10 pounds more pressure on the one side always led me to neck and back pain. And I didn't correlate the two. It wasn't until I healed the spine that I realized, because after that, I never had neck and back pain again from anything. And then I was like, oh, actually, when the spine is out of balance, or when there's a bulging disc or a slip disc or anything going on with the spine, any activity can exacerbate it. Any activity can lead to inflammation and pain. Even walking upstairs, even sleeping, right? You can wake up and have this pain. And so it's the message of the body that's saying, flashing red light, you need to heal this. You need to look deeper into this pain and heal that. And for you, it took a few years, but then eventually.
Well, I think it takes a few years for everybody. And this is the frustrating part.
It is. And if it's something so core, because for you, think about it, if it took you 3 decades to get there, it's going to take you a few years to get out of that. Right. And not always, but it can. And so that's why we have to look at life as like a continuum. Like if it took 3 decades, 30 years or more to get to that point, then it's going to take some time to unravel that pain and to get to the core and to finally heal it. And that's what I saw as you went through that journey to get to the healing of it. And now I'm so happy to see that you're on the other side of it. And it's like, now you can look back and you could even help people through that journey. It could be, it might take a few years, but that could be a really good focal point for you, is like helping people through the journey of the healing of, even if it's a combination approach where maybe they do a surgery, but the combination of the healing practices, the lifestyle modifications and changes, listening to their body, being willing to say no to the vigorous practices or the hiking up a mountain when they normally would push through with grit, and instead like letting this be the message of, you know what, I'm going to be kinder to myself. I'm not going to push through with grit because that's the masculine energy that wants to push through. And instead, I'm going to surrender and just be in a feminine receiving energy of maybe go get a massage and go to the spa more often. And so finding that balance for what you need and for what your clients need is the practice of yoga, because it's literally just learning to listen to yourself and listen to that guidance. And in that moment when that all happened, where it ended up pushing through with grit, it didn't hurt at that moment. And then later it did. And that was the body speaking to teach this lesson. And sometimes we need to have the lesson in order to learn the lesson so that we can get to the other side. And that's this like continuous conversation that we're always having between ourself, our body, our pain, and then like learning how to do what we need every step of the way. And right now you're super young still, like in your early 40s, but like if you were like 70, 80, and you didn't learn this now, then at that point it's going to be a lot harder to, because you become more fragile as you become older, right? So then like if you're pushing through with grit and you're like 70 and 80, you're gonna be like injured left and right. But you learned it early enough that now when you're 70, 80, you're going to be like, actually, I'm going to get a massage and go, like relax instead of like push through with grit. And that's a whole dynamic teaching of like the masculine, feminine energy. And what Justine was talking about with the fire element is traditionally, it's very like more the masculine, it's the push through. And I like that approach when you want to break through and when you're working just with like breath or like something of an energy work versus physical practice. Because when you're physically already injured and you push through, you're asking for a deeper injury perhaps, versus if you're just like moving energy with your breath and you want to give up because your consciousness is lazy and you go, no, we're going to keep going. And then you push through and you have this huge breakthrough, not physically pain, but breakthrough mental and emotional pain. That's a huge blessing. So it's a process of learning what kind of breakthrough you're ready for and what that protocol would be for you specifically or for your client specifically in order to help them to receive that breakthrough. And maybe the breakthrough is self-love, instead of pushing. And then the other side of it could be the breakthrough is self-love by not giving up on yourself. So pushing through the breath to get to that breakthrough in the Kriya. So there's always kind of a dance. And that's why learning to teach and mastering the path of teaching, it's not an overnight process. It's because everybody is unique. Everybody is different. Everybody has their unique pains or their unique discomforts or what they need in their life in this moment. Maybe somebody's been way too feminine and they need that masculine structure to balance that out. Or maybe they've been way too masculine and they need just like to relax more. And so as you work with people, you start to see where they're at, and then you can offer them the opposite of that in order to balance them out. And so I think that that's really one of the blessings of this path is what we're always aiming for, is to be balanced, not to necessarily be one thing or the other, like more fire, more water, but just like if you're too fiery, this is how they teach you in Ayurveda. If you're too much on the fire side, you need to bring some water in. If you're too much on the water side, you need a little fire there. And that's how we balance what we call the doshas, which is the constitution. Did you have any other questions, Jo Piel? That was a great point, and thank you for bringing that up.
I feel like it's one of those things that it's not really going to have a black and white answer, and I understand that.
Exactly. But it's a good thing that you experience that, because I think you can help a lot of people with that, because there's so many people that deal with the same exact pain that you've been through, between the back pain, the back surgery, and also the other thing with the food digestive intolerances and stuff. That's a unique niche for you, because that's actually your first and second chakra that you have really transformed in your own life. And that even I saw that you gave Bokhara the assessment and the nutrition test to see what her intolerances or all that kind of stuff. And that's so cool, because I think you're passionate about that too. So you can literally like create a whole business around helping people just with that alone. And that's such a gift because you have a full personal experience journey of that, and you're passionate about that, and you can turn around and through your own pain and your own healing of that pain and the long journey that it took, now you can turn around and serve those people that are facing those same issues and help them through it. And that's really what I believe that the pain is for, so that you can help people later to get through it, just like you did.
Yeah, thank you. That's positive.
I love you. I
Love
love
you.
you all. Have a beautiful day. I can't wait to see you all in Bali, and I'll be seeing you next week. So if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to connect with us on the Facebook community, in the app, on the WhatsApp group. We have lots of ways, and you can email us at support@flowstate.yoga. Love you, Madison. I didn't hear from you today, but we're sending you love. You are in Kauai, so we're a little bit jealous, but just sending you love. Mahalo. Namaste, beautifuls. It's pouring. Well, that's usual. Kauai. I love you guys. Namaste.